Hello and welcome to our fifth session, and in this session we are actually going to work on our project. So to begin with, I have given you some resource files which I want you to download. So if you come to the Blender Studio lessons, that is if you log into Blender Studio and if you come into augmented reality in Blender, now in this chapter, in the very first instructions, I have provided you with a Google Drive link. This link is also provided in the YouTube video description. So what you can do is you just click on this link. This will open the Google Drive link. You come over here and click on the download button. And once it is downloaded, this is blender_ar_resources.zip file. Just right click it, cut it and bring it into any of your folder. I will just paste it and I am going to unzip this zip file. So first you have to extract all the files present in this. So after you extract it, inside this if you see, you have one media folder which contains many icons and some enter AR and some images, and then you have sounds where I have put in a hello.mp3 wishing sound which we are going to use it later. Then basically the most important file here is this template.blend file. So what you can do is you select all the files present over here, select everything, right click and copy it. After you copy it, now I will close this and now come back to Blender or launch Verge 3D Ultimate. You can now see that in our previous session we had actually created the project Sudhi in AR. Come to this project folder. In the project folder, that is Verge 3D Sudhi in AR, in your project folder, right click and paste it. And it asks to replace certain files. Click replace. And after this, now you have one default file here called as sudhiinAR.blend. Right click this file and choose rename and copy this name. I will right click and copy this name, and after copying the name, I will select this blend file and I am going to delete it. Now I will select the template.blend file which I just now copied, right click and choose rename and paste this name sudhiinAR.blend and press enter. So now I have just deleted my old default sudhiinAR.blend file and I have replaced my template.blend file as sudhiinAR.blend file. So after this, now double click and open this file in Blender. So now if you open this template file, basically here you have, if you come to the layer view here, you have three collections here. One is the helpers, and these helpers have drag move, drag rotate, drag scale, shadow catcher and spot. And this then if you come down, you have camera and text group. In this you have a camera, and the camera is attached to three images. One is the edit image is a child of the camera. Then prompt move around is also the child of the camera, and you have a ready button. Ready button and edit button are placed at the same position, and this is also a child of camera. So that when the camera, if I press G and move it, see, they also keep moving. So I will right click and cancel it. Then we have one more group called as the indicator group, and in this indicator group there is an invisible plane, and then there is an indicator mesh that you can see here. Now one issue we have here is some of the normals of these images are not right. So when we had designed this template, there was an issue. So I am going to correct these normals first. So for that, what I am going to do is I will come over here and in general layout, and here I will press 7 and come to top view. I will select first in the helper drag move. I will come to view, local view, toggle local view. So if I click on this, I will now come here and choose face orientation, and you can see that this is oriented wrongly. You are not seeing the normals. The normals are on the other side. So what I have to do is select it, press tab and come into object view, press A to select everything, come to mesh, normals and choose flip. Okay. Now I will come back to view, local view, toggle local view. This is done. Then I will select toggle rotate, press tab, and even in this case I will come to mesh, normals, flip. I will flip the normal, and for toggle drag scale. This drag scale, to see it, I will come in the front view. You can see it here. Even this normal is flipped. So I will press tab, press A to select everything, go to mesh normals, and I am going to flip it. Then I have the shadow catcher. Shadow catcher is fine. The shadow catcher normals are fine. No problem. You are seeing it blue. Now I will switch off this helper and I will come to the indicator group, and in the indicator group there is one invisible plane, okay, and I will temporarily switch it off. And then if you select the invisible mesh, in case of this invisible mesh, I will select this and I will press tab, and pressing tab here, this part by pressing L, all red parts, press this part by L, press this part by L, and I will go to mesh and I am going to normals and I am going to choose flip, so that all the normals are correctly flipped. So this is the first job we have to do in this. So this is done. I will enable this invisible plane again here, and all these three groups I will enable the helpers also now. Then I will go to file and save it. So in our previous session, in a folder called, that is in H Sudhi avatar, we had created our avatar. You might remember we had created this avatar Sudhi animations.blend, and before we use it, I had also created one Sudhi underscore body texture.png. What I want you to do is right click on this texture, copy it and bring it into your Verge 3D Sudhi in AR. You come and paste it, because we are going to use this texture. Then come into Blender. I am in edit mode now. I will press tab and come into object mode, and coming into object mode I will come into scene selection. Then I will come to file, append, and then I am going to come into the folder in H Sudhi avatar. I am going to select the file Sudhi underscore animation.blend. I will double click, and in that I will come into the collection and I am going to select the Sudhi collection and I will click append. So now you have this Sudhi collection added over here. The first thing is I will rename these things. Sudhi, I will right click, I will come to ID data and I am going to rename this as Sudhi underscore group. And inside that you have an armature. I will right click and I am going to now ID data and I am going to rename this as Sudhi underscore armature. And inside this Sudhi armature there is one more armature here. I will right click, so I am going to rename this as Sudhi underscore armature. Okay, now you have one Sudhi body and I am going to rename this ID data rename. I am going to call this as Sudhi underscore mesh, and inside this Sudhi mesh you have the actual geometry and I am going to call this geometry. I will rename this as Sudhi. Now I will come to camera view. Now only thing is this armature or the object that we have taken is too huge. It's too big. You cannot resize an armature directly. So the way we can resize this is, I will come back to Sudhi underscore group. I will press Shift A and empty, and I am going to add an empty cube, and then I will press 1 and come into the front area, and I will move it along GZ by around 1 unit and press enter. This empty, I am going to right click and in ID data I am going to rename this as in capital Sudhi underscore avatar. And after renaming it, now I am going to select this Sudhi armature. Okay, right click and select hierarchy, select everything, then press Ctrl and select Sudhi avatar. See that Sudhi underscore avatar is the active selection. Then press Ctrl P and set it as the parent. So select this empty Sudhi avatar. I will come into the item view and in scale, in all the 3 axes, x, y and z. I will scale it down to 0.12 and press enter. And then I will set its x value to 0, y value to 0 and z value also to 0.12. And now if I click here, press 0 and come into the camera view, I will come back here and I will switch off this face orientation. And I will come to texture view and see that it appears right with the textures. Right now this duration is set to 140. I want to change it to 275 because this is a 275 frame animation. So if I now play it, see the animation is running and then from 180 frames he is going to wish like this. So the animation is fine. Now I will go back to file and I am going to save this file and then I am going to go to file and I will come to export and I will export this as Verge 3D gltf. Then I will come to my Verge 3D Sudhi in AR and I will select this Sudhi in AR.gltf file and click on export Verge 3D gltf, and when I click on this, this gets exported. And once it is exported, so I will open it in the browser, it's already open. Come to your Verge 3D application, or if you click on app manager here, this is going to open. Now coming over here, click on this and see how the model appears. Okay, so our object is appearing fine, but the only issue is it is appearing too dark. So now what I will do is I will close this and I will come back to Blender. I have to make all this drag, rotate, scale and this number, everything a child of my new character. So for this what I will do is I will come to helpers, I will select drag move, right click and choose select hierarchy, press M and move it to Sudhi group. Similarly select drag rotate, right click, select hierarchy, press M and move it to Sudhi group. Similarly select drag scale, right click, choose select hierarchy, press M and move it to Sudhi group. Select shadow catcher, right click, select hierarchy, press M and move it to Sudhi group. Select spotlight, right click and choose select hierarchy, press M and move it to Sudhi group. So in helper, I doesn't have any object. I will press del and delete it off. Now I will select this drag move, drag rotate, drag scale and shadow catcher and spot. I will open this Sudhi avatar empty and I will come into this Sudhi armature. I will also select this Sudhi mesh also. So I have selected all this object and finally I will select this Sudhi armature. So that Sudhi armature is the active selection. I am now going to come on the 3D area, press Ctrl P and I am going to parent it. And once I parent it, now you can see all these objects are inside this Sudhi armature. I will come back here to my spotlight and I will come over here to the light data and I have set the power to 50 here. I will change it to 120 and then go to file, save it, go to file, export and I am going to export this Verge 3D gltf, Sudhi in AR.gltf, I will export it. Then I will come over here and I will click here and run and check it. Okay, so this is little better now. So now you are seeing the illumination a little better. The other issue I have here is there is no animation. The animation is not playing. The reason is if I come back to my screen here and if I open the Sudhi armature, you can see that this animation data is present as non-linear tracks. Okay. So now in gltf, non-linear tracks will not be recognized. So I have to convert this into the main animation. I have to combine all these non-linear tracks into the main animation and we call this process as baking of animation. And this baking of animation, how to bake multiple animation into one single animation. We are going to discuss about this in our next session.